"You don't deserve to be here." That was the first thing my father said after 7 years of silence. Not "hi," not "we missed you." Just that, like I was a stranger trespassing in a life I used to call mine. I'm Evelyn Carter, 29, and this is the story of how my family tried to erase me, and how I smiled while they did it. The air inside that boardroom could have been cut with a knife. Lemon polish, expensive wood, lawyers lined like vultures in suits. My sister twirled her hair like she was bored. My father leaned back in his leather throne, pretending this was business as usual. 7 years since I'd last stood in front of them. 7 years since they told me I was too emotional, too idealistic, too soft to take over Carter Holdings. 7 years since I left for the West Coast with 2 duffel bags, a camera, and a promise to myself that I'd never beg them for anything again. But Grandpa's death changed everything. He'd been the only one who saw me, who called every Sunday, who told me, "Evie, one day they'll need your quiet more than their noise." And now, his will was being read. Miss Franklin, the family attorney, cleared her throat. Papers shuffled. The cameras in the room clicked softly. Everything documented, recorded, perfect. My father's favorite kind of control. "To Evelyn Carter," she began. My sister rolled her eyes. My father smirked. "I leave $38 million in cash assets and voting control of Carter Holdings." Silence. Like the air itself stopped breathing. Then my father laughed. Not a real laugh. A cold one that tasted like smoke before it happened. He reached forward, grabbed the check, and before I could even blink, flicked open the lighter he keeps for his cigars. The flame caught fast. Paper curled. Smoke twisted between us. "Let's see you buy your way back now," he said. Everyone froze. My sister's lips parted in a half smile. The lawyer gasped. I didn't move, didn't flinch, because what he burned wasn't my inheritance. It was his illusion of control. I just sat there, hands folded, heartbeat calm. And I smiled. He thought he'd won, like destroying a piece of paper could erase me. But Grandpa had warned me before he passed. He'd said, "Evie, if they ever try to take what's yours, don't fight with fire. Wait. Let them light the match first." And he was right. When the smoke cleared, my father leaned back, satisfied. My sister whispered something to her lawyer. Miss Franklin muttered about duplicate documents. But no one cared. They thought the fire was final. It wasn't. Because tucked inside my jacket pocket, sealed and untouched, was a second envelope. Grandpa's real message, I didn't leave angry. I left silent. There's a kind of quiet that scares people more than shouting ever could. The kind that says, "You have no idea what's coming." As I walked out, I caught my reflection in the polished door. Same eyes, darker now. Same calm that used to drive them insane. The kind of calm they mistook for weakness. They were wrong. Outside, the city felt louder, colder, like it knew something had shifted. I walked the 4 blocks to my hotel, boots clicking against concrete, phone buzzing with texts I didn't read. In my room, I set the envelope on the counter. White paper, Grandpa's handwriting, steady even near the end. I remembered the last time we'd talked. Hospital room, rain on the window. He'd reached out, slipped an envelope into my palm and whispered, "Don't open this unless they try to destroy you." I thought he meant metaphorically. I was wrong. I poured myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from recognition, the kind you feel when the pieces start fitting together. I slid a knife under the flap. Inside, a letter, a notarized trust, and a flash drive. The letter read, "If you're reading this, Evelyn, it means Leonard burned something. Probably your check, probably his last bridge to you. But money isn't the real inheritance. Proof is. What's on this drive belongs to you, and it's already safe. Remember, power is quiet. Use it wisely." I stared at the words until they blurred. Proof of what? I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. Folders, documents, bank transfers, ownership files, videos, emails. My heart pounded faster with every click. Then one file stopped me cold. Deceased certificate PDF. I opened it. My name, my date of birth, cause of death, natural causes. Signed 2 weeks ago. My mouth went dry. That's when I realized they hadn't just tried to burn my inheritance. They'd already started erasing me. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? I kept staring at that document on the screen. My name, my birth date, the official seal of the state of California. Status, deceased. It didn't even make sense. I touched my pulse just to feel something human. Still there, still alive, but on paper, I was already buried. By morning, I was pacing the floor. Coffee gone cold, mind running 100 miles an hour. If they could fake my death certificate, what else had they done? I called the bank first. The same one Grandpa had used for decades. Hi, this is Evelyn Carter. I'm trying to log in, but my account's showing inactive. A pause. Keyboard clicks. Then the voice, polite, rehearsed. Ma'am, your account is marked closed. The owner is listed as deceased. My throat went dry. Deceased? I am the owner. Another pause. I'm sorry, but for security reasons, I can't. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Not from fear and from rage. It was them. It had to be. My father, my sister, someone inside the company. I threw on a coat and headed downtown. The DMV was packed. Fluorescent lights, old pop music. The kind of place that makes you question reality anyway. When I finally reached the counter, the woman behind the glass took my ID, typed something, and frowned. You're flagged, she said quietly. For what? For being legally deceased. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. None came. I'm standing right here. She gave me that look, the one people give when they know something's wrong but can't fix it. I get that, she said softly. But the system doesn't. Those words hit harder than any bullet ever could. Legally deceased. I walked out into the street, cold air cutting through me like static. People brushed past. Cars honked. The world moved on like nothing had happened. Because in their world, I didn't exist anymore. And then, I saw her. Across the street, behind the tinted glass of a black SUV, a woman was watching me. Sunglasses, red scarf, hair tied back tight. Too familiar. Mom, she didn't wave. Didn't even blink. Just stared, like she was checking to see if the job was finished. When the light changed, I crossed. By the time I reached the other side, the SUV was gone. Back at my apartment, I locked the door and stood there for a long time. I wanted to scream, cry, break something, but I didn't, because Grandpa had prepared me for this. I sat down at the counter and pulled the envelope closer. There was more inside. A second note hidden under the trust papers. If they ever erase you, Evelyn, don't fight alone. Contact Harper Kane. She owes me her life. She'll know what to do. Harper Kane. I remembered the name vaguely. Grandpa had mentioned her once. A lawyer who quit corporate law after exposing her own firm for fraud. I searched the name. Found a small office 2 neighborhoods away. No website, no photos, just a phone number. When I called, a rough voice answered. This better be about something illegal. It is, I said. Good, she replied. Come in. The office looked like it belonged to someone who'd fought too many wars in too many rooms. Files everywhere, coffee stains, a punching bag in the corner. Harper was nothing like I expected. Hoodie, sneakers, hair in a messy knot, eyes sharp enough to cut through lies. She looked me over like she could read the whole story off my face. You're Evelyn Carter, I nodded. Grandpa's favorite, she said. He told me one day you'd show up with fire in your eyes. I handed her everything. The death certificate, the trust, the USB drive. She read in silence, jaw tightening with each page. Then she muttered, classic corporate ghosting. They declared you dead to claim you abandoned your rights. I've seen this before. Rich families love playing God. She leaned back, thinking. You said your father runs Carter Holdings? Yes. And your sister? She's the public face. Pretty smile. Empty soul. Harper cracked a smile. Figures. Then her tone hardened. We're going to take them apart. Piece by piece. She called someone. A man named Dr. Milo Reed, a forensic document expert. He arrived 20 minutes later, tall, quiet, glasses glinting under the fluorescence. Within minutes, he pointed to the signature on the death certificate. This loop on your E, it's real. But here, flat, pixelated, They lifted it from a scan. Sloppy job. So they forged my signature? I asked. He nodded. Badly. But legally it's enough to ruin you if we don't act fast. Harper was already moving. First step, freeze your father's access to any accounts tied to your name. Second, file an injunction for identity theft and fraud. She paused, looked straight at me. Third step, tell me if you're ready to burn them down. And for the first time since the will reading, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I said. Let's burn. That night, Harper filed the motions. Milo compiled the forensic report. I called a journalist Grandpa had once trusted, Nash Wilder. He picked up on the second ring. I heard about the will, he said. What happened? They tried to erase me. Then let's make sure the world knows you're still alive. When I hung up, I finally looked at myself in the mirror. Same eyes, same scars, but the reflection staring back wasn't the daughter they tried to erase. It was someone new, someone dangerous. I wasn't scared anymore. I was awake, and for the first time I realized they thought they'd burned my inheritance. But what they really did was ignite me. Morning came gray and heavy, like the sky already knew what was coming. My phone buzzed before sunrise. Harper again. Don't check the news yet, she said. Why? Because they moved faster than we thought. Too late. I was already scrolling. Carter Holdings announces new CEO, Marissa Carter. The headline hit like a punch to the ribs. The article claimed I'd resigned years ago, and my shares had been redistributed by request before my passing. Passing. They used the word like a blade. Harper cursed under her breath. They're burying you in plain sight. Milo leaned over my shoulder, eyes narrowed at the screen. We can counter this. Their timeline doesn't match the signature logs. They faked everything. But logic wasn't enough. They had power, media, lawyers who lived to twist truth until it begged for mercy. I stood there staring at my sister's picture on the article. Perfect hair, gentle smile, headline haloed around her like she'd earned it. I could almost hear my father whispering, "The world only believes what it sees first." Fine. I'd show them something they couldn't unsee. We met in Harper's office that afternoon. She'd already filled a whiteboard with arrows, dates, and names. This isn't just about the money, she said. Your father's prepping an IPO. If he goes public with those fake documents, he'll convert your shares, cash them, and lock you out forever. So what's our play? I asked. Harper tossed a folder across the table. We go public first. Inside, a press release, affidavits, proof of identity theft, and a signed statement from Milo verifying the forgery. All we needed was someone to publish it, someone big enough that Leonard couldn't silence. That's where Nash came in. We met him at a diner off 3rd Street. Old neon sign. Sticky menus. The kind of place reporters love because nobody cares who's listening. He slid into the booth. Recorder already on. Everything you tell me is on record, he said. Good, I replied. They've been writing my story without permission long enough. For 2 hours, I laid it all out. The boardroom, the fire, the fake certificate, the ghosting. Nash listened without interrupting, pen scratching faster than I could speak. When I finished, he closed the notebook and looked at me like he was seeing the headline already forming. This isn't just fraud, he said. It's identity homicide. By the next morning, his article was everywhere. Heiress declared dead to seize fortune. Carter family under investigation. Comments exploded. Hashtags trended. For the first time, the silence that used to bury me became noise they couldn't escape. Harper called. Nice work, ghost girl. You just turned their PR machine into a confession. But it wasn't over, because an hour later, my doorbell rang. When I checked the peephole, there he was. My father, Leonard Carter. Perfect suit, perfect calm, like the fire never happened. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. You've made a mess, he said. No, Dad, I replied. You did. He smiled the way people do when they still believe they own you. Do you really think an online tantrum can change what's written on paper? Funny, I said. That's what I used to think about fire. He stepped closer, voice low. You don't understand the world you're playing in, Evelyn. Power doesn't care about truth. It cares about timing. I met his eyes. Then you're out of time. He laughed once, turned, and walked away. By sunset, the SEC had opened a preliminary inquiry. Carter Holdings stock froze. Board meetings were suspended. Harper filed the injunction to reinstate my legal status. Milo's affidavit went to federal court. But with every move we made, they pushed back harder. Anonymous calls, threats, emails from concerned parties. Even Nash received a cease and desist with my forged signature at the bottom. He called me that night, voice tight. They're desperate. That's good news. Why? Because desperation means they're scared. Still, fear has a way of finding cracks. Mine came 3 nights later, when I found my apartment door unlocked. Inside, nothing stolen, but my laptop was on, screen glowing, a single document open. Stop digging. Dead women don't sue. No signature. Just those words in bold. I stared at them for a long time, then shut the laptop slowly. They wanted me scared, small, silent. Instead, something colder settled in my chest. When Harper saw the message, she didn't flinch. "Congratulations," she said. "They're breaking rules now. That means we're winning." The next morning, I walked into the courthouse flanked by Harper and Milo. Camera flashes exploded. Reporters shouted questions. I kept walking, calm, unblinking. Inside, the clerk looked up when I handed over the papers. Name, Evelyn Grace Carter. Petition, restoration of legal identity and corporate fraud claim. "Ma'am," she said, scanning the documents. "According to our records, you're deceased." "Not anymore," I replied. The gavel struck before noon. Temporary injunction granted. My legal existence restored pending full investigation. For the first time in weeks, my name meant something again. When we stepped outside, the sunlight hit like proof. Reporters surrounded us, microphones flying. "Evelyn, do you have anything to say to your family?" I smiled, the same calm one from the boardroom. "Tell them this time, the fire's mine." That night, I went back to Grandpa's letter, tracing the last line with my thumb. "When they try to erase you, don't fight for revenge. Fight for permanence." I didn't know what that meant yet, but I would. Because the war they started wasn't about money anymore. It was about legacy. His, mine, and everyone they thought they could silence. And I wasn't done speaking. The next morning, my phone was chaos. Emails, missed calls, headlines everywhere. Evelyn Carter alive. Fraud at Carter Holdings under federal review. Every outlet wanted a comment. I didn't give one. "Not yet," Harper said. "Let them talk first. Every rumor they spin now becomes evidence later." So I watched. And I waited. And in the silence between news cycles, we started digging. Milo sat in front of a wall of monitors in Harper's office, eyes locked on a spreadsheet so dense it looked like static. "See this?" he said, pointing. "Subsidiaries listed in Delaware, Nevada, the Caymans, all feeding one name, Renshaw Consulting. Never heard of it." He zoomed in. "Owned by Leonard Carter. Registered 6 weeks before your grandfather died." Harper leaned back, exhaled through her teeth. "That's their funnel. They've been siphoning dividends for years, prepping for the IPO. Your check wasn't their endgame. It was the distraction." "How much?" I asked. She turned the monitor toward me. $214 million. I felt the room tilt. It wasn't just greed. It was architecture. Years of building a castle out of other people's silence. Harper's voice cut through. "We need proof it ties to the board. Emails, transfers, something that screams premeditated." I thought for a second. Grandpa's flash drive. There was one folder I hadn't opened yet. Voice notes. I plugged it in, heart hammering. There he was. His voice, soft, clear, recorded days before he died. "If you're hearing this, Evie, they're moving the money. Renshaw's the vault. They think I don't know, but I do. Keep the drive safe, and when the time comes, take it to someone who listens to truth louder than titles." That someone was already sitting across from me. Harper. She smiled. "Then let's make them listen." By noon, we were in a federal investigator's office downtown. Agent Donovan Miller, gray suit, gray hair, zero patience. He flipped through the documents, the audio transcriptions, the forged signatures. When the file ended, he looked up. "Ms. Carter, you understand what you're accusing your father of?" "Yes," I said. "And I have the proof." He nodded slowly. "Then this just became criminal." That night, Harper got a text from one of her contacts on the Hill. "Subpoenas approved. Board meeting frozen." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. But relief lasted all of 30 seconds before my phone lit up again. Unknown number, a video message. My sister. Her face pale, mascara smudged. "Evie, stop. You don't understand what you're doing. You're going to ruin everyone." I stared at the screen. Everyone? Funny how people only worry about everyone when their name's on the line. I typed back 3 words. Too late. Already. The next morning, Nash published a follow-up story. Whistleblower files reveal hidden network behind Carter Holdings. The internet did the rest. Stock crashed. Shareholders revolted. Board members started resigning faster than the ink could dry. And Leonard Carter? Silent. Until the hearing. It was held in a glass-walled courtroom downtown. Press outside, cameras flashing like lightning. He walked in wearing that same calm, expensive suit, flanked by lawyers who looked carved from marble. I didn't sit near him. I didn't look at him. I just listened as the prosecutor read the list. Forgery, fraud, identity theft, corporate misrepresentation. Each word sounded like a nail in a coffin he'd built himself. When it was my turn to testify, I stood, palms steady. The judge asked, "Ms. Carter, do you have any statement?" I met my father's eyes. "I was never after revenge," I said. "I just wanted to exist in the truth again." His expression didn't change, but his shoulders did. Sank. Like the first crack in the wall he'd spent his life building. By the end of the week, federal agents raided the Renshaw accounts. 2 board directors flipped, testifying under immunity. The empire he'd built on my silence collapsed in daylight. Harper showed me the news on her phone. "Congratulations, Ghost Girl. You just brought down a corporation without firing a shot." But the victory didn't feel like celebration. It felt like closure. Heavy, necessary, real. I walked outside into the crisp evening air. The city lights blurred in the puddles on the pavement. For the first time, I could breathe without wondering who was watching. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I heard Grandpa again. "Power is quiet, Evelyn. Use it to build, not burn." I smiled, whispering into the wind, "I will." 3 months later, the hearings were done. Verdicts delivered. Headlines already fading into the next scandal. Carter Holdings was under new management. My father faced sentencing. My sister moved to Europe for a break from the noise. The world moved on. But I didn't. Not in the way people expected. Everyone kept asking what I'd do now that I had my name, my shares, my money back. Would I rebuild the company? Would I take the CEO chair they once said I wasn't strong enough for? No, that chair had always been his cage, not my home. So I started somewhere smaller, a corner building that used to be a repair shop, cracked brick, faded sign, exactly imperfect. I hung one plaque on the door, the Carter Foundation. No press, no ribbon cutting, just the work. Harper became my co-director. Milo set up a digital forensics lab upstairs. Nash stopped by with a camera sometimes, saying, "The story's not over, is it?" I told him, "Not unless people stop needing a place to start again." Our first client was a woman dishonorably discharged after she reported her commander for harassment. She walked in shaking, file clutched like a shield. "You're Evelyn Carter," she said, almost whispering, "the one they tried to erase." "Yeah," I said. "But you can call me Evie. We sat at that same table where Harper and I once planned a war. Only this time it was to help someone else survive theirs." When she left, she smiled for the first time in years. That smile stayed with me longer than any headline ever did. Weeks passed. The building filled with voices, veterans, single mothers, whistleblowers, anyone the system had tried to silence. We gave them lawyers, counselors, laptops, coffee, and something rarer than all of it, proof that they still mattered. Every wall inside carried a single framed quote from Grandpa's letter. Make something they can't erase. And we did. One afternoon, as I was closing up, someone stood in the doorway. My sister. She looked smaller somehow, softer. "Evie," she said, "Dad wanted me to tell you he's sorry." I waited. She hesitated. "For what he did," I nodded. "That's between him and the mirror." She swallowed hard. "He said you were always the quiet one, the one he underestimated." I smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong about that part. She left without another word. And I didn't stop her. Some chapters end without a period, just space. That night, I sat alone in the office, lights dim, city humming outside. The same hum that used to make me feel invisible now sounded like proof of life. I opened Grandpa's last voicemail, the one I'd never deleted. "Proud of you, kid. Remember, legacy isn't what they leave you. It's what you build when they're gone," I whispered. I built it, Grandpa. And I meant it. The camera of memory zooms out. From the girl in the boardroom who stayed silent while her father lit her future on fire, to the woman now sitting in a small office that hums with new beginnings. The same hands that once held ashes now hold files full of other people's second chances. And if you're still listening, if you've ever been told you don't belong, remember this: you don't need their permission to exist. You don't need their check to prove your worth. Sometimes the quietest comeback is just being here. Still breathing. Still building. Still real. Have you ever been written off? By family, by law, by someone who said you'd never make it back? Tell your story, because the world needs the sound of your survival more than the noise of their power. Like, share, follow, whatever keeps this message alive. No filters. No fiction. Just fire that builds instead of burns.